Utility companies are killing rooftop solar, or that's at least what the media thinks. Truthfully, utility companies are just pivoting on us and changing the rules to the game. And just like any game, when the rules change, so does the strategy. In this video, we're going to quickly explain how and why utility companies are making these changes to rooftop solar. Then I'm going to provide you with 3 different core strategies that you can use to maximize your system's performance, your energy independence, and your overall savings. And number 3 is a strategy that I see overlooked all the time, and you can actually implement it right away. And for anyone new here, my name is Zach. Welcome to the channel where we talk about solar, batteries, and cool stuff like that. And if you do end up enjoying this video, please drop me a like, check out my other videos, and subscribe for more. I love making videos here on YouTube, and I thank you guys for all of your support. So let's discuss what's going on and why is it happening. Give me a couple minutes here to set the stage. This is really important to know, but if you do want to skip ahead to the summary and the strategies that will help you increase savings and grid independence, you can go ahead, jump to the next timestamp below. There are 2 terms that I need to confirm before we get started. Number 1, solar export. Solar export is any excess power that your energy system has generated that you have not used for yourself in real time. So this energy gets exported or sent back to the grid. Number 2 is self-consumption. Self-consumption is when your home uses your solar energy in real time to power your home, or you store it in a battery for later rather than exporting it back to the grid. So the energy that you generate on site sort of has 2 true outcomes. It either gets exported or it gets self-consumed. So these are kind of opposites of each other. And historically, all major utility companies have offered some sort of credit per kilowatt hour for your solar export. Usually a 1-to-1 retail value, commonly known as 1-to-1 net metering or retail net metering. So basically, if you give them 1 kilowatt hour of energy throughout the day, you sell that back to the utility company, they'll give you 1 kilowatt hour of credit to use during a later time or a later day. This is essentially store credit for your electricity. Now, this might be the way that your utility provider operates. There are still a lot of providers within the US that offer 1-to-1 net metering. However, this has really become a thing of the past, especially in solar mature markets. States like California, Hawaii, Arizona, Utah, Nevada, Texas, they've all really pivoted away from this to more of a net billing strategy where the utility companies will offer a reduced wholesale rate for your solar export. So what does this mean? Essentially, you have assigned buy rates and sell rates. A buy rate is a rate that you pay them for energy consumed from the utility company. And a sell rate is the rate that the utility pays you for your energy, as if you were a power supplier. These rates may be time-based, they may be fixed, they may be variable, but in most cases, they are some reduced value, meaning they will pay you a percentage of what they charge you. This causes you to have to export or sell back 2, 3, maybe even 4 or more kilowatt hours of your energy to equal the amount of just one of their kilowatt hours. It's not a good trading ratio. Utility companies are usually never the same, and they are highly specific, so it's not one size fits all. In some regions outside the US, like in the UK and in Australia, solar export is already being reduced, has already been reduced, or even eliminated. And for any of my viewers outside of the US, go ahead and share in the comments below what your utility's export structure is. And for those of you who are still on that 1-to-1 net metering, you should absolutely appreciate it. It's becoming a thing of the past. And if your utility still offers it and you have not gone solar yet, I would highly consider that you at least revisit the idea of adding solar to your home. And if you need any help going through that process, reach out to me. Let's book a call. All of that information can be found in the description below. So why is this happening? To put it simply, utility companies just do not value your solar export as much as they used to. And it's not because they're mean and they don't like you. The reason is due to the abundance of supply. In the markets I mentioned, rooftop solar is not hard to find. And during the day, these areas have such a large supply of incoming solar generation and a relatively low demand during most of this time, the value isn't what it once was. Utility companies are always performing this balancing act between energy generation and the demand for it. And unlike conventional power plants, solar and wind resources can't be fully dispatched at will to help meet that real-time demand unless there's a battery system. To give a little bit more context, perhaps you've heard of the duck curve. A duck curve is essentially a line graph that tracks daily net energy load from the grid, and it gets its name because it looks like a duck. The example shown on the screen is for California since 2015 during springtime. However, in many solar dense markets, it's going to look pretty similar to this. You can see the tail of the duck is representing your early morning energy demand, where it's fairly consistent and sees a small spike in the AM when people are getting ready for work. And then once the sun comes out, the massive army of solar panels in California get to work and create this extremely deep belly of the duct. This incoming solar generation heavily reduces the net energy load for the utility. And keep in mind, during the middle of the day is typically a lower demand period of time anyway. Then once the early evening rolls around, naturally there is a huge spike in net energy demand due to two things. One, solar power begins to taper off. Two, consumers are getting home from work. This chart shows us that the belly has gotten considerably deeper since 2015 due to the solar boom, whereas the tail and the head of the duck, which represent the non-solar hours, haven't seen as large of a reduction. So to summarize, because of this balancing act of energy demand and energy generation that utilities are seeing in these solar mature areas, solar export has just become less valuable to them, but energy export during these peak time slots have become much more valuable. These are variables right here that are driving more and more people to get a battery system with their solar panels. If these utilities still offered that full retail one-to-one net metering for your solar export, it makes zero sense for them. Additionally, this would just slow the adoption of batteries, which is what they really need. They want to be able to dispatch energy at high demand times to help meet the net energy load that we're seeing with our grid. And this is the entire concept of time-based rate plans, virtual power plants, and why utilities continue to change the rules to the game. So how do we maximize our solar generation, our energy independence, and total savings when the utility doesn't value our solar export? The issue that our data shows is the average home may only self-consume right around 40% of the energy that your solar system will produce throughout the day, meaning more than half of that generated energy was going to be exported out to the utility. Now, if you have one-to-one net metering, it's not a problem because that timing doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when you generate or consume the energy. But if you have a reduced export rate, it's a big problem because the timing really does matter. The problem that we need to solve is we need to increase the percentage of energy produced that is actually self-consumed. All right, let's pivot into 3 different strategies to do this. First, you can store your solar export. Second, you can reduce your solar export. Or third, you can consume your solar export. Number 1 is the easiest and the most obvious. So rather exporting your excess solar energy throughout the day, pair your solar system to a battery and store that energy for a later use. Basically, you become the bank and your bank offers a fair 1-to-1 trading ratio. You could use this stored energy for future on-peak rates, evening hours, grid outages, or even export it back to the utility company when they offer a very attractive rate per kilowatt hour. There are no limitations. You're basically getting all the benefits of solar energy, but with the automation and flexibility of it being used at any point in the day. This is what's happening in areas with virtual power plants or in California with NEM 3.0. Obviously, this comes at an expense since batteries aren't cheap, and depending on your utility provider and personal goals, this may not be your best option. However, I will say this is probably your best long-term strategy since it's the straightest line forward to energy independence and maximizing that self-consumption. It also gives you more protection towards future rate changes or utility changes since the battery is flexible with its programming. So if export rates change, on-peak rates change, or on-peak hours change, you're able to pivot accordingly. If you plan to do the project in phases, it's important to let your installer know so they can prepare for easy expansion from day one. Moving into strategy number 2, go with a smaller system. And the initial reaction to this suggestion is that homeowners want more solar panels because in their mind, more solar panels mean less utility consumption, and that's not always the case. Bigger offsets aren't always better. Yes, adding more solar panels increases the amount of energy that you produce in the day. However, it's still condensed in that same 8 to 12 hour time block. All you're effectively doing is increasing that solar energy peak. So unless you store that energy for later or you consume it in real time, your utility's export rate better be worth the price you're paying for the additional infrastructure. And for those of you who are researching solar, you're in a market that may not offer net metering or even a favorable export rate, and you're not quite on board with getting a battery system just yet, going with a partial offset or daytime focused system like we're discussing may be the best route for you. In some cases, this may offer you the best solution in the short term, quickest payback period, best net savings, but it will not be the best path towards energy independence. This strategy will not eliminate your entire energy bill. The system will focus more on meeting your daytime energy load throughout the year and not much more. Exporting solar energy isn't really a part of this system's strategy. And depending on your lifestyle and how active your home is during the daytime, the sizing for daytime needs may vary person to person. The plan is to target a 50 to 80% annual offset here, meaning if you consume 10,000 kilowatt hours annually, I want a system that can generate 5 to 8,000 kilowatt hours per year. This isn't a rule, just a general guideline. Due to the air conditioning working a little bit harder, a slight majority of our annual energy consumption does come during the daytime as opposed to the evening time, especially in your summer months. Usually this is going to be during the mid to late afternoon as well, typically when the on-peak hours are, which would favor western and southwestern facing panels. Not because they would necessarily generate the most electricity per panel, but they may generate energy when you need it most in real time. So this could be a good starting point for you if you want to do the project in phases, but you want to clarify all of these goals with your installer. Each utility has different rules on system expansion, so you may need to build it for expansion from day one, mainly on the electrical and the inverter rating side of the system. And the third and most important strategy is shifting your energy consumption. And for everyone on time of use rates, you already know the concept of load shifting, which is shifting your heavy energy demand from on-peak to off-peak times. But what about shifting energy demand from non-solar hours to solar hours, where you can directly energize these heavy loads with excess solar energy? And for those of you with a battery system, you might be thinking, but I already have a battery. I don't need to worry about managing my energy demand. You're partially correct, but in most cases, a home battery system will be fully charged up by mid-morning to early afternoon, leaving a time block open where excess unused solar energy could be better spent powering your needs rather than being exported back to the grid. Additionally, if you are on a time of use rate plan, you will want to make sure this time block is during off-peak. Most providers will not begin their on-peak time until mid to late afternoon. With a little automation and creativity, you can better utilize your solar export. Remember too, these are just some of my ideas that I have used. You can do this with any electrical load that you want and that works for you. First is going to be your electric vehicle. Now, most of us will charge in the evening during off-peak hours, but if you have the scheduling flexibility, why not charge during the day once your battery is full and then treat it like a second battery system? Now, if you have a vehicle charger that automatically charges from solar, this is the easy way to do it, but not everyone has this feature. The good news is if you need to do it manually, it can be done as well. For example, what I do is if I'm working from home that day or it's a weekend, I can leave my car plugged in and have it ready to charge. And once I get a notification from my Net Zero app that my battery has hit 100%, I can go to the vehicle app and hit start charging. You can also just set a scheduled start time on your vehicle based on when your battery is nearly 100% based on past days. And if you don't have a battery system for your solar panels, you do now. So if you notice by 12 p.m. that your battery is always fully charged, this can be your start time. Additionally, you'd want there to be a stop time at either the beginning of on-peak rates or when solar energy begins to taper off for you, usually around 4 or 5 p.m. Here's the kicker though, on almost all EVs and EV chargers, you have the ability to throttle the amperage. So if you only want to charge from excess solar and not beyond that, this is where it'll come into play. In most cases, you can't charge at a full speed because you will likely exceed your solar's output. For example, most level 2 home chargers will charge at 10 to 12 kilowatts at full speed. I usually charge at around 16 amps, which ends up being just under 4 kilowatts. You just want to see how much solar export is usually available and then try to match that up. Remember, amps times volts equals watts. This will give us a straightforward solution to take advantage of our solar export and charge directly on sunshine, especially for those of you without a home battery system. Now, if you work outside of the home during the day, this is not practical for you on work days, but hopefully can still be something you experiment with during your off days. Another option is we can use our solar export to power our AC unit to pre-cool our home for the later part of the day when we typically need it most. And with a smart thermostat, anyone can do this. Almost every smart thermostat out there can be programmed with scheduled start and stop times. Just like with EV charging, we want to identify when our solar export really begins. During this time, let's say it's 12 p.m., you can go ahead and pre-cool the home to a couple degrees lower than your desired temperature. Then once the on-peak rolls around or your solar export begins to taper off, you can then set a schedule to have the thermostat adjust your air to either at or above your desired temperature by a degree or two. And for those of you with an electric heat pump, you can do the inverse as well with your home when it gets really cold in the winter. This should give us a few hours to take that excess solar energy, convert it into a more comfortable home, and ensure that we're maximizing our AC's energy usage. However, here's some other ideas that might serve you you value, nothing major, but all of these little things can help. For those of you with an electric dryer, planning your laundry usage for days when you're home to run your laundry loads and your dryer during the middle of the day when solar export's at its highest. If you have a pool, you can schedule your pool pump to overlap your off-peak solar hours. Standard pool pumps are energy hogs and can use 500 kilowatt hours a month or more. If that's what you have, consider upgrading to a variable speed pool pump to help further your energy savings. And if you have an electric pool heater or hot tub, you can also plan to preheat these during solar hours as well. Hopefully you guys got some value from today's video. Sub to the channel and drop me a like if you enjoyed. You should check out this video that I put together about how many solar panels are needed to charge an electric vehicle. I think that would pair nicely with what we covered here today. As always, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time.